Disney Plus has a documentary series that takes a look behind the scenes at the making of Frozen 2. And today, I'm going to be looking at the 4th episode as Frozen 2 gets closer and closer to its world premiere. Stick with me, and I'm going to break it all down after the intro. Well, hello there! My name's Jeremy and welcome back to Freeform Disney, where I talk about all aspects of Disney, from the animated movies to the theme parks to Star Wars, Marvel, and Pixar, and the TV shows, and everything else in between. And that is why it's Freeform. And keep coming back every day for new daily content. If you're not subscribed yet, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Today it's on to episode 4 of Disney's Into the Unknown Making Frozen 2. This is both a frustrating episode at times and also one with all kinds of neat tidbits here and there, which I love seeing. After last episode, we're moving onward to the giant audience preview. This episode is called Big Changes, which is a reference to all the changes the movie undergoes after that fateful audience preview. So here's what went down. First, we get a fun little bit where we get to drop in on June 11th, 2019. And why is that day special? Well, that is the worldwide premiere of the big old trailer for Frozen 2. So we get to see some reactions over at Good Morning America, and we get to see Chris, Buck, and Peter Vecho watching it over back in headquarters at Disney Animation, while everybody else is way too busy working on making the film actually happen to be able to see it. And I'm sure the two of them are right back to work pretty quickly after that anyway. So here we are in June, and the audience preview is coming up in just a few weeks. Now this is big, because instead of just being other Disney people watching it like it has been before, this will be families, kids now too for the first time. And there are concerns they have about whether they matured the movie too much, and how well it will play for everyone. Because they still want it to work for everyone, even though they were hoping for it to be a more mature movie that would have aged with the people who saw the original. Will it work? Will it not? Well, being that the title of the episode is Big Changes, well, not quite as well as they wanted it to. Okay, everyone, trivia time. Which song have we really not looked at yet of the major songs? How about When I Am Older? It's time to finally look at that one. We get to see Josh Gad in there doing some recording, working with Bobby and Kristen. You get some cool notes about how, hey, circle those high notes, make sure you help hit them. That just rings something from my own history there, whether it be acting or singing or whatnot. And yes, circle certain things, or you'll highlight different pieces to make sure you really key in on those spots. Just a little reference there that just brought up things in my own life. Well, and then from there we got to head on over to some of our other crew who we saw, like Alex Snow, an animator, and we got to see the reference room, I think for the first time in this little series of documentary. So the reference room has tons of mirrors, cameras to record so they can just go ahead and mess around in there and try to get an idea for different character movements, how that would look, etc. Really cool. Then we got to talk to Marlon West, who is the head of effects animation, which is a pretty big role in animation. As he said, everything that you see move on screen that is not a character is an effect, which is a lot. And we had another interesting quote there. He said that we don't do realism here. We do believability. I thought that was a really interesting one. We talk so much about making things realistic and how important realism is in so many different genres. But that's not what they're going for. They just want you to believe what you see, not that it actually has to reference a real world. And that makes a lot of sense here in Frozen, especially considering we've got magic and fantasy going on hugely. Huge. So yeah, nice way of looking at that. Okay, so we're now 2 weeks out, and the crew is up to almost 400 people at this point, working heavily on that movie. And in comes Josh Gad to go record some more lines and some tiny little pieces over with good old Jennifer Lee, Chris Buck, and some crew. We got some really neat talk with Josh Gad about what was important to Olaf. The whole piece about improv being really big there, and how really Jen and Chris talking to him about how Olaf represented youthfulness and naivete. And that was kind of the basis for Olaf becoming who the heck he is. And then we got this neat piece where we got to see Josh and Jennifer Lee especially just really workshop Olaf's first line with an orthaldra. Originally the line seems to have been, "Oh, right, you've never seen a talking snowman before." But I love what comes next, because Josh Gad had this intuition that, well, that line is currently obvious and less interesting than a line that might not be as obvious. So he asks what the not obvious version would be, to which Jennifer Lee tosses out this naked remark, which essentially becomes the line eventually that we know from the movie, where Olaf talks about, "Oh, you've never seen me naked before," or I think it was, "the clothes are restricting," if my memory serves correctly. Yet it's so much better because you know what everyone else is thinking first, but then you also get Olaf's reaction, and it makes it a multi-layered joke that way by not having just gone with a simple, obvious choice. Some good comedic insight. Okay, let's talk a little more as we're really getting right up to that audience preview. Essentially, it leads to lots of long days and loads of overtime in the weeks right before because they're trying to do as much as they can. Because really, you can't even have an audience preview until apparently the movie is about half animated. Which makes sense. I mean, we want people to at least see half of the movie the way it might appear. Yeah. I'll give a quick call out that it was cool to see all the production supervisors over in a big production supervisor meeting with the person who's actually the production manager. That was pretty neat. We didn't delve into it too deep, but it was neat to see another aspect of how the production works that we hadn't gotten too far into yet. Well, anyway, it's pretty much time for that audience preview. And Jennifer Lee makes these good comments about what's really scary about it. It's not just that you're putting your stuff out for other people to see it. I mean, that's scary, sure, but this is worse because guess what? They don't even get to see it complete. They're getting to look at your unfinished work out there. I mean, heck, the thing's only like half animated, right? It's like, ooh. So that means there are spots that, well, no, that really is a good moment, but I can't tell you it is because I need to hear what you actually think of where it is at this moment. Yeah, scary right there. So we're off to the audience preview, and they don't do it in LA. They like going elsewhere, so it's off in San Diego. And they find out the audience is 6 and up. I guess they might have been hoping at least some of them for 8 and up. Not sure. And I'll tell you that it looks like Jennifer Lee at least is a bit of a nervous wreck waiting as everything's about to happen. Now, certainly some of the others might be too, but if they are, they're certainly better at hiding it right there. Now, as far as the screening works, they go there ahead of the audience getting there, get to talk a little bit, then dash out, and then once the audience gets there, they'll sneak back into the theater and sit with everyone. They just don't want everyone knowing that the production staff is actually there, because that might affect everybody and how they react to the movie. But they really want to be there so they can hear the audience's reaction, because that just means so much more. Well, anyway, after that's done, the screening's over, they head back into the theater to go discuss what they noticed. And apparently one of the first bits of feedback they get after the movie, because, I mean, before that they get to hear the audience's reaction. But afterwards, they get this high-level likes versus dislikes. And let me tell you, this is also a bit of a frustrating note. For whatever reason, we don't choose to ever say what the number was. Nor do we see how the heck Jennifer Lee and Chris Block, Peter Vecho, etc., we don't see how the heck they react to what that number was. So who the heck knows what it was? Maybe it was lower than they wanted by a ways. Maybe it wasn't. Oh well, we just jumped off to the next day without hearing anything more. But hey, all of this didn't stop the work back over at Disney Animation, because during all that, while that was going on, people were still working. The movie still has to keep going forward. So people like Juan Hernandez, who is a layout artist, which intriguingly, apparently in animation is pretty much the camera department. And so you got to see all these cameras on his screen that he had, and you could see what they could do in the digital environment and all the different angles and the types of cameras and different lenses. That was pretty cool right there. So essentially how you work with it more in the idea of how we would think about shooting a movie, but in a digital space. Very intriguing, very cool. And we also got to see Aaron Ramos, who was an effects supervisor. and she specializes in all the water effects. And so that big flood down the river, well, large-scale animations of water like that, apparently they take days to go ahead and compute. And much later in the episode, we actually do come back to her, and we talk about how she has run some of the biggest simulations that she's ever worked with, and how excited she is by the work that everyone around her has also done. Which I gotta say, it makes me curious just how many people also worked on it. How many did it take to do that flooding scene of the river after the dam broke? Well, I'm definitely curious. I don't know the number. I don't know that we'll ever know it, but intriguing. Okay, now on to the day after the preview. Well, we're headed into the room to hear everybody talk, to hear Chris Bach, Peter Del Vecho, Jennifer Lee talk. And then apparently we're not. Because Peter Del Vecho makes this whole, I don't know if we should have cameras. Chris Buck's like, probably not today. And that's that. So we don't get to be in the room where it happens. In the room where it happens. No Hamilton right now. We're in Frozen mode. While that door's closed, we hear from some of the animators who are talking about their own trepidations of what shots of theirs might get cut. We hear that, well, the typical way it works is they don't come out and tell everybody what the notes are until they have a plan on how the heck they're going to solve them. And usually they'll go through the different production supervisors, talk with them all about it first, and then the bulk meeting comes where all of it gets explained, but you don't have to hear about it in the bulk meeting for your own individual part because they don't want to just spring that on people with everyone around. So everybody gets individually consulted with before that mass meeting. But still, during the mass meeting, they go over all of it. So, of course, you want to know, well, what are the big changes? What kind of feedback did they get to cause these big changes? Well, keep wondering, because you're never going to find out. Yeah! Episode about big changes is not going to tell you what the big changes are or why. Well, I mean, we'll get to hear of a couple of them, but that's about it. Which, let me tell you, is frustrating as hell. I mean, this is definitely, I've not been frustrated like this by any of the episodes of this documentary before. But this one, yeah. It's like if we had the Titanic, we were doing something about that, and we get up to the point where the Titanic hits the iceberg and we're going to go past that. But, we don't actually say the word iceberg. We don't say it crashed. Nothing about ice, nothing like that. Instead, what we get are we have the people talking about, oh, it was really bad what happened. Anyone who was nearby there would agree, oh, it was bad, and we had to do some big things to try to deal with it. And I think we're going to have to evacuate the ship. That's how big what it is that happened. But we never talk about what it is that actually happened. It's like, it feels absurd not to, but that's essentially what happens here. Let's move on. The very general view we get of some of what had to be changed was that apparently with kids it was a little confusing and too complex, so they had to simplify things and make things a little more fun. There's what we got. Apparently there are something like at least 61 new shots and 35 redos for the movie, and we hear that it's a good half of the movie that had to be reworked, which sounds huge right there. We do know that a few things went over really well. The whole Samantha piece went over great. Olaf's song, well, here, really all of Olaf just really went over great. The fire salamander was one of the most popular characters of the entire movie. And yeah, so we found out a little bit of what worked. So what did we find out didn't work? Well, Kim Hazel, an animator, found out that pretty much everything she had just been working on didn't work, which looks like it was something between Elsa and Honey Marin. Beyond that, I don't know. I don't know what it would have been or what exactly it was. So something there got deleted. Then we moved over to Trent Corey, who was animation supervisor for Olaf. And we did get to see this piece that definitely got deleted. And he apparently had 8 shots get cut, but one of the big ones was this whole section in bringing Olaf back to life near the end of the movie, where we got to see the water droplets coming off the leaves and freezing back into snowflakes as it get gathered back to where Olaf was being formed. And that's just, I mean, that's pretty cool right there. It's too bad we didn't get to see that one. I mean, I can understand why it got cut, but, oh, it sounds so cool. Now, there's also another piece that we know for the intro that gets cut will be talked about, I think, more next time around. And what else got cut? We'll talk a little more, but Intriguingly, if you actually pause on a notepad that good old Michael's got over in that room, yeah, there's actually a few things on there that you can catch. It's hard to make it out, but apparently there's a shortening of the whole Yelena and Matthias fight, which it never really felt like they were really all that at odds when you watch Frozen 2. And from what we hear, that just kept getting cut down further and further. I mean, see, the sky went out, now this gets cut down further. The way everybody gets introduced changes to an Olaf piece. We'll talk about that in a second. And then there was scenes on his notepad like bring Kay up, which I'm sure is Kristoff, and give him stuff more to do. Poor Kristoff, apparently. It was even less in the movie than we remember. There were things about the ship at the seashore. Maybe it was further out before, maybe? It took more time, I guess? Don't know. There's other stuff on that notepad, but the more power to you if you can figure out what it said. Okay, so one piece that we really also spent some time looking at is that new section of Olaf and what he would do to get rid of some of the exposition, and where Olaf does his zany little impression of all the pieces that came in Frozen, which, by the way, was a ton of fun. And we got to see the animation work on the Poppy section. Yeah, I mean, it was great. And one thing that I thought was neat there, too, was where they're really going big first. Maybe it'll get reined in. Maybe it's too big and over the top. But guess what? Directors can rein that in afterwards. And now, as an actor and as someone who's done some directing too, I identify with that. It is so much easier to pare something back down than to have to try to pull something out of people or out of a performance that just isn't there. It's called give me something to work with. It's like, so I understand that from both sides of that kind of interaction. Well, anyway, that pretty much brings us up to the end of the episode. We talk about how Peter Del Vecho is, well, frankly, sounds a little worried. Lots of changes that they're having to do really quickly, and that it's very hard on the crew this late. And he's even got this comment about, hey, we've never missed a release date before, and there's no way this is going to be the first one. I mean, even that you're making that comment makes it sound like you're worried about how much you're pushing this. And, ooh, that's intriguing. Dang, it makes me wonder what exactly the reaction of that audience really was and what all they heard. I wish we had gotten to see. I mean, there's an old adage in storytelling about how it's best to show, not tell. And, well, that's not what they followed here at this spot. I'm not blaming the people making the documentary per se. I don't know what they were allowed to go ahead and show. But from what we were told, big changes apparently were needed, but we're only told all this. We don't get shown any of it. Clearly, they didn't want us to see behind the curtain and see how the sausage was made. And what's worse, insult added to injury, is that they don't even say why they won't let us see behind that curtain. If there's a really good reason for it, I'd be more than understanding. But right now, it just seems they don't want to show it, because maybe they think it'll look badly on them, or will reflect badly on some other group of people, or Disney as a whole, or I really don't know. Okay, no more of that rant. It's not what I'm here for. There's too much to enjoy to go spend all my time on that. And I sure as heck did enjoy a good bit of this episode, even if I ranted a bit about it too. Like in this episode, Josh Gad was a delight to watch. Got to see him recording lines, doing a bit of When I'm Older, doing that cool little Frozen 1 montage. Too much fun. We got to see a bunch of the work of different animators, and we got to meet a layout artist and some effects people. We even got to see pieces from what looks like a really beautiful sequence from Olaf's reconstitution, which sadly got cut. And that's just to name a few things. Far more than we would have ever gotten to see if we didn't have this episode of the documentary take place. So trust me, I am far happier that this episode exists than if it hadn't. Let's say that. Well, time to race to the finish next week, when I put out a video on the 5th episode of the documentary. Hey, you can still go watch it all right now if you wanted to. It's all out. But for me, a little bit longer. Well, regardless of the rockiness of this episode, you can bet I'm looking forward to the next one. And hey, what about you? What was your favorite part of this episode? Did you love Josh Gad, or say the animation, or maybe some of the effects? Let me know down below in the comments. And thanks for watching. If you liked the video, please give it a like, share it with anyone you think will too, and don't forget to click that subscribe button if you haven't done it already. I'll see you back here tomorrow for another new episode of Freeform Disney. Have a magical day, and may the Force be with you always.